A few months ago, this was my overhead setup, a space that I had put together solely for capturing top-down videos. Now, while it served its purpose very well, I always felt like it could be so much more. When I moved into my basement studio a couple months ago, I decided it was time for a rebuild. This time, I wanted to create something more versatile, a multi-purpose workspace that includes an overhead station, an iPad desk setup, a charging station, and plenty of storage. Let's take a look at how it all came together. The first thing I did was install two Amaron 150C studio lights that I bought to use as overhead lights in the space. Fortunately for me, I planned ahead and made sure to install one power receptacle in each corner of the ceiling during the basement development phase. Additionally, I acquired some low-profile ceiling mounts to securely hold up the lights. Starting with the right side, I installed each mount by determining the best position for the lights and how they would light up the desk below. I used a tape measure to ensure the mounting points in both corners were as aligned as best as possible. After securing the ceiling mounts, all that remained was to attach the two lights, each equipped with small, newer square softboxes. Now, these softboxes were the perfect choice to pair with the 150C in a tight corner setup like this one. Once everything was mounted, I configured both lights using the Midas Link app, which provides wireless control. This feature is one of my favorite aspects of using Amaron lights since it allows me to adjust various parameters from the convenience of my phone or my tablet. Before moving on to set up the overhead camera rig, I decided to bring in the workbench to get a good measure of where to mount the rig for the optimal camera viewing angle. Earlier, before the basement was even developed, I picked up some large Husky benches from Home Depot, and unfortunately for me and my friends, this decision turned out to be a bad idea. The benches were extremely heavy and we had to bring them down and around the side of the house to get them into the basement. Thankfully though, the house has a walkout basement, which was one of the reasons I chose to buy it and use the basement as my office space in the first place. We managed to get both workbenches into the unfinished space and they remained in place until the flooring stage of the basement development process. Fast forward to now and I realized there was only enough space for one bench. I ended up having to move the other one to a different location. The bench I decided to keep is 61 inches wide and 23 inches deep with a built-in pegboard. It has a mostly glossy white body with black accents on the handles, corners, and the wheels. The tabletop features a light wooden look with a glossy finish as well. I pulled up the pegboard, which was folded behind the bench, and leaned it against the wall for some balance. I wanted to avoid losing flexibility by mounting it to the wall with screws, so instead, I used heavy-duty double-sided Velcro tapes to attach the top to the wall. The bench also offers ample storage, equipped with a full-length drawer at the top, 5 mid-length drawers in the middle, 4 small drawers on the right, and a deep one-door cabinet. This setup is a significant upgrade from my previous home office, which had only an Alex drawer. Installing the new overhead camera rig came next. For this part of the process, I needed to pick up two items: an extendable ceiling mount and a ball head. The mounting process was identical to the one used for the lights, so it took me even less time to get the mount installed once I found the optimal position. I attached the ball head to the fully extended mount and tested out the quick release plate with my camera, the Sony Alpha 1. This is kind of an overkill camera, but one that's well suited for overhead shots simply because it's equipped with a full HDMI port. I ran cables to provide consistent power to the camera and an HDMI cable for the monitor as well. I then dusted off and brought out my old M1 iPad Pro to serve as a control unit and operations hub whenever I'm at the desk. Alongside it, I placed a 16-inch 4K portable OLED monitor to display what the camera sees at eye level. Additionally, I added an old Amaron T4C tube light from one of my older setups, which fit in perfectly as both ambient lighting for the desk as well as background studio light for overhead videos and photos. The light can also be controlled using the Midas Link app, which I definitely set up to ensure seamless operation. The next part was a personal touch. I replaced the original text label on the bench with my name using an A to Z sticky text kit that I bought on Amazon. After getting the 5 letters up there, I thought the final result came out looking pretty dope. A few days later, the parts I ordered for installing LED ambient wall lighting arrived. I didn't waste a second and began with mounting the first item, the aluminum LED channel. I chose V-shaped channels in all black to fit seamlessly into the corners and create a striking contrast against the white walls, adding clean black accents. The plan was to install 2 units in an L-shaped design across the entire top and right side of the area. Once the channels were secured in place, I ran an RGB cob light strip from one end to the other. Then I hooked up the smart controller to a power adapter and plugged it into power at the bottom corner. The final step was sealing up the channel with transparent covers to produce soft lighting. The final result came out looking great, so I decided to add another channel and strip combo underneath the staircase area as well. The process of installing it there was much easier and quicker since I only had to work on one corner from the top to the bottom. Once the channel was mounted, I ran the strip from the bottom to the top and powered it using another controller and adapter combo plugged into an outlet down there. The next stage was mounting my new wall storage system. I chose this option over cabinets to keep the floor space free. Now, it's not necessary to have some help installing pegboards, but it sure makes the process much easier, faster, and reduces the chances of making mistakes. I opted for metal pegboards instead of IKEA plastic ones because they are more durable and can hold a lot more weight. Before purchasing, I measured the spaces where I would mount them to ensure that they would be a perfect fit. Fortunately for me, I found pegboards that almost perfectly matched the openings on both sides of the wall. On the longer wall, I installed 3 pegboards horizontally measuring 16 by 36 inches each. On the adjacent smaller wall, I added another 3, also horizontally, this time at 16 by 32 inches. Given their identical width, I made sure to align them neatly on both walls to make sure that they looked great at the end. I decided to leave the bottom areas empty to avoid waste, as many items will hang from the top boards. To maximize space, I added another 16 by 36 inch pegboard on the longer wall beside the lower board already installed there. To utilize the remaining space above it, I also installed 2 16 by 10.5 inch boards, but in a vertical orientation this time. Finally, I mounted a small metal shelf on the opposite wall to store various colored backdrops that I use in my overhead videos. These wall storage options allow me to maximize the wall space I have under the staircase. Next, I brought in my new cleaning assistant, the Dreamy X50 Ultra, a smart robot vacuum with mopping capabilities, something I definitely need for consistently maintaining clean floors in my studio space. I often find that I'm too busy for day-to-day floor cleaning, so this is definitely going to add a lot of value. Inside the box, it came with all sorts of accessories to fully utilize its features. It came with a decent sized docking station, which serves as home to 2 containers, one for holding clean water, and the other is great for holding dirty water. Hidden behind the front panel is access to a dust bag and a small detergent container, which will only need to be accessed occasionally to replace the bag or to top off the detergent. The robot itself has a very sleek and modern design with a mostly black exterior with minor gold accents. The LiDAR scanner is located on the top of the robot vacuum, while a built-in LED lights, cameras, and sensors are positioned strategically to help it navigate around obstacles accurately in both bright and dark environments. Underneath, you will find 3 wheels, 2 large ones and a small one in front. Between the 2 large wheels is the vacuum and a dual brush system, along with a side brush for tackling tough-to-reach corners. This brush also extends outwards for even better corner cleaning. Below the top cover lies a compartment that holds the robot's filter and dust box. Inside the accessories box, there were 2 circular mop pads, an extra dust bag, a small container of detergent, a cleaning brush, and a power cable. I attached mop pads next, utilizing their magnetic system for ease of installation. After that, I emptied the starter detergent into the container from the docking station. There wasn't much, so I'll likely need to buy more soon. I also took the liberty to add some fresh water to the clean water container on the docking station. I placed the docking station under the staircase next and then set it up in the corner intersection between the 2 walls. I connected the power cable to the base station, wrapped any excess cable neatly around the bag, and then tucked it into the corner, ensuring enough clearance on all sides. Then I brought in the robot vacuum and placed it in its dock. Next up, I returned the detergent container into its compartment and then did the same for the clean water container. All that was left at this point was to power on the robot and then set it up through the Dreamy app for automations and, of course, remote control. As soon as I had it paired to the app, I decided to let it first charge up to 100% before putting it to work. While that was happening, I brought in some items that I use frequently to test out my new pegboard wall storage. I started with my bags, of which I have quite a few, but I only decided to wall mount the ones that I use most often. Thankfully, I was able to fit a decent number of bags, each serving different purposes. Now they'll always be easily accessible whenever I need them. On the shorter adjacent wall, I used an assortment of pegboard hooks to hold all sorts of small to medium-sized items. This arrangement is definitely not set in stone and will change occasionally as my needs evolve. At this point, the robot vacuum had reached 100% charge and was ready to map my studio space. It uses a highly accurate LiDAR scanner that did an excellent job mapping out the entire floor plan, including room separations. Admittedly, I still had to do a few manual adjustments like adding no-go zones and virtual walls, but nothing required extensive tweaking or hassle to accomplish. Once the map was generated and the robot was fully set up, I put it on a recurring schedule to clean the studio floors 4 times a week, maintaining a clean space without the additional effort. I also let it go on its first cleaning run at that time to see how it functions, and it did not disappoint. It has a feature called Pro Leap that allows its 2 large wheels to extend and help it climb over obstacles up to 6 centimeters in height. Additionally, it can lower its LiDAR scanner when encountering super low areas to clean underneath. Besides these 2 major features, it also does an excellent job of vacuuming with an incredible suction power and dual mop brushes that extend to reach corners and automatically clean themselves with hot water as well as detergent at the station after each job. My only issue with it so far is that Matter protocol, which was promised to come built into it at launch for easier smart home integration, is still not available at the time of this video. After about a week, I decided to reorganize the workbench area as it just wasn't what I had envisioned and also wasn't meeting all of my needs. I took the setup apart really quickly and got the bench out of the way before adding a new power receptacle. The plan was to add a new 15 amp plug for a wall-mounted monitor. I've done this a number of times in the past, so this was a quick and easy process for me. After that, I installed a low-profile wall mount capable of holding up to 44 pounds of monitor weight. It came in 2 pieces that had to be separated before installation. One piece was to be mounted on the wall, which I did first, and the second was to go on the back of the monitor's VESA mount. Speaking of the monitor, I needed one with a 4K resolution, a 16:9 aspect ratio, and very accurate color reproduction. I went with the Dell UltraSharp 27-inch 4K LCD monitor, which has a 98% DCI-P3 rating, and VESA Display HDR 400, which are both known to improve color reproduction accuracy. It also has KVM functionality, which is great since I plan on using this setup with various devices and sometimes even multiple at the same time. Unfortunately, it only has a maximum of 60 Hz refresh rate, which is probably the only thing I wish was better. It came with all the usual cables you'd expect from a new monitor, and on the back side, you'll find plenty versatile I/O ports for connecting various peripherals, including a USB-C port with power delivery. After getting the monitor fully unboxed, I attached the second part of the 2-piece wall mount to the VESA compartment on the back side and then proceeded to mount the monitor onto the wall. It was a perfect fit and had the low profile look that I was hoping for. Moving on, I decided to add 2 pegboards on opposing sides of the monitor to create wall storage for different items. For consistency, I used the same 16 by 36 inch metal pegboards as before, but opted for a vertical placement this time instead of horizontal. After securing the first board using 6 screws, we moved on to the second and ensured it was perfectly aligned with the first before screwing them in. Finally, we added an extra 16 by 34 inch wall control unit, which I had left over from my garage wall storage installation. I chose this type of pegboard storage here because wall control offers more mounting options, including metal shelves, which I needed on that as well. Before adding the shelves, I decided to quickly mount a monitor light, which I'd forgotten earlier. This light is designed to help create separation between the monitor and the wall while reducing eye fatigue during desk work. The next thing I did was go ahead and roll the bench back into the space, this time with the built-in pegboard tucked back into its original position. Besides making it easier to move the bench whenever needed by separating it from the wall items, doing this also added about an extra 1.5 inches of desktop depth, which honestly was much appreciated. I also decided to add a DIY LED strip to the bottom of the desk right below the pegboard. This was quick to install since it only required a straight path. After that, I rotated the desk back to its rightful position, connected a controller and power adapter, and then plugged them into one of the 6 built-in power outlets on the right side of the bench. Once I confirmed that everything was working properly, I moved back to the top of the desk to finish setting that up. Starting on the left side, I reconnected my iPad to the monitor using a single USB Type-C cable for both power and data. This setup allows me to keep the tablet charged at all times while taking advantage of the 4K monitor as an extended display. Next, I experimented with a few different layouts for the items that I wanted on the wall, ultimately settling on a single keyboard stored below the iPad. The keyboard has a 65% layout with low profile keys, making it great for light productivity and general day-to-day work, which I plan on doing there. I love its portability, and currently I have it connected to the iPad via Bluetooth for seamless use with the monitor. On the right pegboard wall storage, I placed 3 additional keyboards that I keep as backups for my main ones or for instances where I need an extra keyboard. Next, I mounted metal shelves onto the wall control system on the adjacent wall, and then I placed an old HomePod mini on the bottom shelf, allowing me to use voice control for all the smart tech in my studio. Then I returned to the monitor wall and installed an Amaron T4C tube light across the bottom of the pegboards. I powered that up using another one of the built-in outlets on the bench. I don't know about you, but I can't have a desk setup without a desk mat, especially one that's glossy and meant for recording overhead videos. So to fix that, I ordered a XXL desk mat in dark gray from Amazon and placed it on the bench, covering most of the surface. Finally, I brought in my Logitech Pebble mouse and paired it with the 65% keyboard to create a super compact combo. On the left side of the bench, I added some leftover Secret Lab magnetic cable management pathways in order to route a pair of USB Type-C cables. These cables are connected to a power outlet with dual 60-watt Type-C ports at the bottom. It helped a lot with cable management, especially since that side of the bench is always going to be visible. The white color of the pathways also blended in really seamlessly with the workbench, making them look like an integrated part of the setup. At the top, I used sticky cable organizers to prevent the 2 cables from falling off the desk. These cables are meant to provide readily available USB Type-C charging for any device that needs it. On the opposite side of the desk, I added a U-Green desktop charger for additional power and charging options. It features 3 power outlets, 3 USB-C fast charging ports, and a single Type A charging port. This charger, combined with the cables on the left side of the desk, gives me enough versatility to power or charge any device in the space. I also ran a Cat 6 cable to the top of the desk, hooked up to one of the 4 I installed in the right corner of the wall behind the bench. This is something I always wished I had in my previous overhead setups, as it allows me to test any tech product that requires or could benefit from a faster and more reliable wired Ethernet connection. Similar to the left side, I used a cable organizer on this side as well to keep the cables neatly in place. I didn't have any genius ideas for hiding the power and HDMI cables that connect the camera at the top to the monitor, so I bought a wide cable sleeve to create a more polished appearance. After that, I moved on to fill in the remaining 2 shelves on the right wall with my camera lenses. I placed them there because, well, I think they look great on display and are much easier to access when needed. Finally, I moved the HomePod mini down onto the tabletop and then used the bottom shelf to store some of my most frequently used items in the area. For the chair, I chose an Amazon Basics bar stool, one of the very few options that actually met the requirements for this unique setup. The box included everything needed for assembly, so I put it together very quickly. Once fully set up, I adjusted the seat height to an ergonomic level, ensuring a proper viewing angle when using the monitor in a seated position. It also comes with heavy-duty casters that roll smoothly, making it easy to move the thing around different parts of my studio. Besides having a comfortable seat, the included backrest also adds to the overall comfort the chair provides. Finally, it has a height adjustable ring at the bottom that also functions as a footrest, something I didn't realize I needed. Well, not until now. At this point, everything was hooked up and laid out just the way I needed, so I decided to test things out to make sure everything was in fact working correctly. First, I tested the single USB Type-C connection, which also allowed the iPad to be projected onto the larger 4K display. It also maintained a full charge this way, reducing the number of cables that I needed. Once again, cable management in mind. I paired a mouse and keyboard with the iPad using Bluetooth, essentially turning it into a full-blown desktop running on iPad OS. Next up, I tested the overhead rig. Using the Midas Link app on the iPad, I turned on the overhead lights and set them to identical temperature and color settings. I turned off the monitor light to prevent any contamination from unknown light sources, keeping the tube light on and set to the same temperature and color as the overhead lights. Since all the lights are produced by Amaron, their combined output remained consistent, helping maintain color accuracy for post-processing work. I turned on auto switch input on the monitor so that whenever I connected the HDMI cable to the camera and powered it on, it would switch displays automatically, allowing me to use the monitor as a large display for my camera. In addition to the HDMI cable, I added a USB-C power cable to power the camera while it's mounted, eliminating the need for batteries. In the end of it all, I believe I was able to successfully build a multi-purpose workspace setup and storage area that accommodates various scenarios I encounter in my workflow. It serves as an overhead station, an iPad desk setup, a multi-device charging station, an office storage area, and even a home for my smart robot vacuum. Overall, I'm impressed with how everything turned out and cannot wait to start using the space in different ways. I'll provide links to some of the items that I used during the build process in the description box below. Thank you for watching, and I hope you picked up some ideas for your own build. If you made it this far in the video, I really appreciate your support and the time that it took you to get here. I'll catch you guys in my next video. You already know who it is, man. It's Tommy, and I'm out, y'all.